Hello and a very warm welcome to this special video explainer for Sports Today. I am Siddharth Viswanathan, and in this video, I will be telling you the latest situation regarding the ICC World Test Championship points table. West Indies recently defeated England, and now the entire ICC World Test Championship points table has opened up. There are some major surprises, and in this video, I will be taking you through this complicated tale of which team is in the fray. I will simplify all the terms and all the doubts that each of you will be wondering what is it about the ICC World Test Championship table. Before I get into what each team needs to do in order to qualify for the ICC World Test Championship final in 2023, here is a look at the current point situation. Australia are on top, followed by South Africa, India, Pakistan, but shockingly at the bottom, England now are on the brink of elimination. People will be wondering, Australia has 72, India has 77. Why is India not on top? Let me remind my folks who are watching this video that when the ICC formulated the ICC World Test Championship cycle, the teams would be ranked based on the percentage points. I will tell each terminology and I will explain in detail what does percentage points means. Number of matches won, 5, lost, drawn, the number of series that are available for each team. Keep an eye out on this, folks. Penalty overs. I will get to it as to why it will be so important in the outcome of the ICC World Test Championship final. Now in this, I am going to explain what is the crucial terms that are involved in the ICC World Test Championship. This regards percentage and this regards the penalty rates and also the points available. The key point that you have to understand is a team gets 12 points for a win. A draw gives them 4 points. So if it's a 5-test series, a team gets 60 points. A 4-test series gives you 48. A 3-test series 36. A 2-test series 24. This is the most crucial aspect of how do you calculate the percentage points in the ICC World Test Championship. The calculation is pretty simple, folks. How do you calculate the ICC World Test Championship points calculation? It is number of points that are won divided by the total number of points available into 100. So let me give you an example of the points table. Like, how did this? Remember this equation, folks. Points calculation is number of points divided by the total number of points available into 100. I will explain the points table and show it to you how it can be done. So let me give you an example of Australia. They have 72 points, but how many matches they have played? 8 matches. The maximum number of points that Australia could have got is 96. So 72 divided by 96 into 100 gives you 75 percentage points. But remember, folks, in that there is a major deduction that is there. I showed you the penalty overs. According to the ICC World Test Championship playing conditions, Article 16, 1 point will be deducted for every over that is shot. So when you saw in the bottom of the sheet that England was at last position, they also had 10 overs shot. So they have been deducted 10 points. And in the long run, why this is important? The shot over points deduction was the key difference that allowed New Zealand to qualify, because Australia in that series against India, Boxing Day 2020, Australia were 2 overs short and they were deducted 2 points. Had those 2 points not been deducted, Australia would have qualified for the final and faced India rather than New Zealand. So I have explained the terminologies. What is about the ICC World Test Championship and what are the key things taken into perspective. Now moving ahead, let me tell you what are the chances of each team. I am beginning with Australia. Australia, as I mentioned, have 75 percentage points. They have 5 wins. But more crucially, They have 4 series remaining. The series that Australia will play are 2 away and 2 at home. They will play Sri Lanka in June, July. The dates were announced recently. They will then play the West Indies at home and they'll play South Africa at home. But the major contest is going to be India. 4 test series early next year, and this could potentially be the preview for the final in 2023. Australia, with their win against Pakistan, can get past Sri Lanka. They can also defeat the West Indies, but they have a very, very tough encounter against South Africa. You have to remember, South Africa has not lost to Australia since 2013, and this makes them the favorites. India, well, as I mentioned, a preview to the final which might be held later in 2023. Now, let's move to the remaining teams. Now, South Africa. These guys have basically upset the entire equation. They have 60 percentage points, they have 3 wins and they have 4 series left. But more crucially, when they defeated India 1-2 in the ICC World Test Championship series that recently happened in December, January, it threw open the entire table. South Africa will play a series against Bangladesh that is coming up soon. They will play England away. They will play West Indies at home, and they will play Australia away. So, the number of tests are not announced. It is slated to be 3 or 4. But what does South Africa need to do? Beat Bangladesh, beat West Indies. The key series for them will be England. If they can beat England for the first time since 2012 and they can get the better of Australia, they can seal their spot in the final. They will have to hope that they beat Australia by a commanding margin in order to knock them out of contention. Remember, they have beaten India. They are now going to play Bangladesh at home. They will then play England away and Australia away. Because what has happened? That one win that they had in New Zealand changed the entire equation. Where does the Indian cricket team stand? Theirs is a very complicated situation. That loss to South Africa 1-2 basically ensured that their overseas woes continue. But they are not yet on shaky ground. They have 1 test remaining against England. Why have I put 4-star? Because they have to play 1 test against England that was rescheduled, and that will be played in August. So, India have 58.3 percentage points, but their plight has not been helped with 3 deduction points because of slow over rate. That could hurt them in the long run. So, what are India's upcoming series? Basically, they have 1 test against England, which will be their second last overseas cycle. Why? They will play 2 tests against Bangladesh. But this will be the key. 4 tests against Australia, January, February, potentially in 2023. The final match which could determine who goes through to the final. Equation is simple for India. Win 3 games and ensure they don't lose to Australia. If they beat Bangladesh, England and Australia, they basically win 6 out of 7 matches. They are through to the final of the ICC World Test Championship. Now, what can I say about our dear neighbors, Pakistan? Well, Pakistan started the tournament and this ICC World Test Championship pretty brightly by beating Bangladesh 2-0. But before that, in their first overseas tour, they managed to draw 1-1 against the West Indies. That was a missed opportunity. They lost the Jamaica test by 1 wicket, but they managed to bounce back and win the second test. Had they won that test as well, Pakistan would have been in a better position. They just have 3 wins because of 2 against Bangladesh and 1 against the West Indies. But disaster has struck Pakistan when they lost the series to Australia 1-0 and there were 2 draws. So basically they have dropped 28 points, 28 potential points at home, which is a massive thing. So 44 points because they won 3 matches, 36, 4 for a draw, 2 2 draws against Australia, 4-4, 44. Now, what are their upcoming series? Pakistan still has a chance because they will play 2 tests away to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka have not been in the best of form anyways. So they'll fancy their chances there. England are coming over to Pakistan for 3 tests. Remember, they were scheduled to come last year, but they did not come. And so they are coming this year. New Zealand will tour Pakistan for 2 or 3 tests. The number will be known in the next couple of months, but mostly it will be a 3-test series. So 3-3-2. They have 8 tests remaining. If they beat Sri Lanka 2-0 and they manage to avoid series defeats against England and New Zealand, they will have to hope that Australia does to India what they did to Pakistan. But if they lose to England or to New Zealand, then their chances of reaching the final are all but out. Sri Lanka, well, Sri Lanka are in a very bad position at this point in time because they did start the ICC World Test Championship on a high by whitewashing the West Indies. But their gains against the West Indies were levelled out when they were hammered in India. So they just have 2 wins, but both those wins came against the West Indies. Now, what are the series? They have 4 series left. So which are the series that Sri Lanka are going to play, both home and away? Because 1 away has been done, 1 home has been done. Sri Lanka will host Pakistan for 2 tests. They will go to Bangladesh for mostly 2 or 3 test series. Australia are coming to Sri Lanka after a gap of 6 years. And they are going away to New Zealand, which will be the last series in their cycle. But if they beat Pakistan and they beat Bangladesh, Australia presents a massive proposition for them, and so is New Zealand, the defending ICC World Test Champions. If they lose to Australia and New Zealand and as well to Pakistan, their chances are eliminated. The only hope is they don't lose pretty heavily to either Pakistan, Bangladesh, Australia or New Zealand. If they manage to hold their own, if they even draw, and if they even win series against Bangladesh and Pakistan, they will do well to avoid defeat against Australia and New Zealand. But it looks a very uphill task for them. What is the state of our defending ICC World Test champions, New Zealand? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint Kiwi fans, but they are all but out because they have had a disastrous home summer, as well as for the fact that they lost in their only overseas tour so far. The 1-0 loss to India plus losses to Bangladesh and South Africa have not helped New Zealand at all. In 2020, New Zealand had gone through because they were undefeated at home. But here they lost 1 test to Bangladesh, so they could not win the series. They won the first test against South Africa, but they could not clinch the series. They lost the second test there. So New Zealand just have 2 wins. They lost 1-0 to India and there was a draw. So that is why it is very important to understand that New Zealand are all but out because they did not win series at home against South Africa and Bangladesh. Does the job get any easier for New Zealand? Apparently not. What are their upcoming series? They will play 2 tests against Pakistan. They will host Sri Lanka for 2 or 3 tests, but their key series is against England. They will play 3 tests or 2 tests in England depending on the schedule that will be out now. 2 or 3 tests against England that could make or break their campaign. A series loss to either Pakistan or England or Sri Lanka will spend the end of their title defense. They will no longer be in contention for the ICC World Test Championship final. West Indies and Bangladesh are also in the similar boat like New Zealand. West Indies, although they won against England, they won it 1-0 and continued their proud tradition of not having lost many series against England at home for the last 5 decades. So what must West Indies do? West Indies unfortunately have got 2 very tough tours to Australia and South Africa. If they lose any one of that, they're out of contention. They have a series against Bangladesh lined up in July or August, which they will win, which they might win. Bangladesh are also in a very similar boat. They lose one series and they're out of the contest. They missed a golden chance to draw against Pakistan, but they squandered that up. So Bangladesh have got very difficult series against South Africa, which is going to happen now. But their next series is against India, and that could be the death knell for their chances. But I want to focus on England. England are at the bottom, and they are all but out of the reckoning. One loss in any match in the upcoming series, they have 4 series left. One loss and it is end of their cycle. Why? England were hammered 4-0 by Australia, and they were also lost to the West Indies. Just one draw, 2 draws with 12 points, and that is where you see England just have 4 points. And they, although they won one game against India, they did not help themselves with 10 penalty points, and that is why you see their percentage point is just 12.5. It is really a tragic tale that England have lost 4 consecutive series. An interesting bit of fact, Joe Root is the current captain and he's led them to 4 consecutive series losses. It started with India and they lost to Australia, and they have also lost to the West Indies. Fun fact, the last time England lost 4 consecutive series, which was indeed 5 consecutive series, was 1992 to 1994. At that time, Joe Root was just 1 year old. So what are the series that is available for them? Let us have a look at what England will play. England are hosting South Africa and New Zealand at home. 3 tests. Maybe with New Zealand it may be 2 tests. They have that one game remaining against India, which will be played in August. But their key match will be against Pakistan. A 3-test series in Pakistan conditions in the subcontinent, it's not been easy. So if England loses even one game, they are out of contention. I hope that answers all your questions, folks, of the ICC World Test Championship, the qualifying, the points table, the percentage points calculation, how does the penalty overs work. If you have any further questions, comment, like, share, subscribe, and we will be back with more such explainers in the coming days. Thank you so much for watching this video. Keep watching Sports Today for more updates.